Good morning and welcome to A View from the House. My name is Lukhanyo Khalada and we're coming to you live from the SABC's parliamentary studios in Cape Town. Well, it's a big day in Parliament today and all eyes will be on Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan this afternoon when he presents his medium-term budget policy statement in the National Assembly. And to get a taste of what to expect and what not, we are joined by political parties this morning to share with us their thoughts on the MTBPS, what they think the minister will be saying and what he should be saying from their respective parties' perspective. We'll also be joined by economic analyst Mr. Abdul Wahid Patel to talk to us about the mini budget. But first, we talk to the political parties, and I'm joined in the studio now by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Finance, Mr. Thabo Mufamadi of the ANC. The DA's Shadow Minister of Finance, Mr. Tim Harris, is here, as well as Mr. Nick Quirinoff, the finance spokesperson for the Congress of the People. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to our show.
Good morning, Lukhanyo and the viewers.
I think this is a question that I want to throw out to each and every one of you. Now, much has been said about the state of the South African economy at this moment. A lot of it is very much doom and gloom. In your own perspectives, in your own opinions, are we in a crisis? If so, how deep is the South African economy in a crisis? So let's start with you.
Thanks, Lukhanyo. And let me also welcome the viewers out there. What I can say, there are two issues that we should start looking at when we look into the medium-term budget policy statement. First is the global situation, and I want to talk about also the domestic situation. Globally, since 2008, it's common knowledge that the economy remains in a very, very difficult position. In fact, the World Economic Outlook, the IMF, has just revised the world economic growth downwards internationally, including economies that have been doing exceptionally well, such as China and India. Of course, they still remain at high growth. Now, domestically, we've had our own fair share of problems, particularly in the labor relations areas, that has contributed towards the downgrading of our standing internationally as South Africa. But having said so, I don't think we have a crisis in our hands. Okay. I don't think we've got a crisis in our hands.
Let me move on to Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, same question. Are we in a crisis?
I think the moment of truth is today, actually. Certainly the economic indicators are very bad. The two recent ratings downgrades are going to increase the cost of debt in this country. They are a motion of no confidence, if you like, in the South African economy. And as the chairman said, the strikes, the general labour unrest means that there are storm clouds gathering over the South African economy. So we'd be looking to the finance minister to chart a way out today.
All right. Mr. Quirinoff, your turn on this question.
Yes, I think, when a country goes through difficult times, it is time for leadership to perform. And what we would like to see from the finance minister this afternoon is leadership. We went through a very good time when politically we changed hands in 1994. That was because of good leadership. South Africa is a little bit in lack of good leadership, and that is putting pressure on the economy.
All right. So thanks very much. Well, so not yet in a crisis, but Mr. Harris says the storm clouds are gathering. So what are the key challenges then that will be facing Minister Gordhan this afternoon when he presents the medium-term budget? Sir?
From our side, as the ANC would expect that the medium-term budget policy statement continues to give hope to our people, but also to investors, in the sense that infrastructure spend must remain key in the prioritization of our own budget, but not only because it is important for economic growth, it is important for the future in terms of social economic infrastructure development. Certainly the world economy is not going to remain doomed as it is forever. At some point it's going to turn. The question is, how long will it take to turn around? So when that moment arrives, South Africa should be ready in terms of infrastructure, electricity, roads, and everything. And I think over the past 3 years or so, in fact since 2008, what has propelled economic growth is infrastructure spend, both public and economic. And as the ANC, it will be important to say, to expect that education must remain a key priority, and health, particularly around the issue of NHI. We should not expect that there should be so peddling because of these challenges that we have in front of us.
All right, so thanks very much. Mr. Harris, your advice, if any, to Minister Pravin Gordhan this afternoon, what would you advise him on?
Well, firstly, I mean, we agree on the infrastructure build program, but we need him to come out this afternoon and tell us how that spending is going. In February, he said that the state-owned entities were only able to spend 60% of their infrastructure budgets. Now, that seriously undermines our ability to deliver anything. So we're looking for good news on that front. Secondly, we want him to commit to cutting wasteful expenditure across government. Out of the annual reports that we've had to Parliament so far this year, we tallied around 6.7 billion rand of wasteful expenditure across government. If the Minister doesn't come out today and announce a plan to cut that wasteful expenditure, we'll be severely disappointed.
All right. Mr. Kronoff, what option do you think the Minister has to lift the burden, the debt burden, especially on poor households?
Well, I think he's in trouble with regard to that, and so is the ordinary household in South Africa. We've just seen that unsecured loans are at a record level of 380 billion in this country. If we look at the ordinary South Africa borrow now to buy food and to pay for transport. So I think he's a little bit in trouble. You know, there's no room for him to lift any taxes. I must agree with Tim Harris. You know, Pravin Gordhan must hit the brakes this afternoon, and he must have a close watch on his departments not doing their job in terms of wasteful expenditure.
All right. Mr. Harris, if I can come back to you. Should we be concerned about the current status of South Africa being seen out there as an investor-friendly country? Should we be concerned at all?
Absolutely. The news we heard yesterday is that foreign direct investment into the country dropped off 43% last year, while it increased across Africa by an average of 5%. We've also had countries like Chile that have seen huge increases in foreign direct investment, around 60%. So clearly investors are voting with their wallets. They're saying they've got questions about South Africa as an investment destination. And if the finance minister doesn't show today that he is the one in control of economic policy, that he's setting the direction of this country, not the ANC's tripartite alliance partners, not COSATU, then I think you're going to see a worsening effect in terms of foreign direct investment.
All right. Mr. Mufamadi, a response to this, to the same question. South Africa out there, should we be concerned about how the investors are looking at it? Is it still an investor-friendly country?
Well, you know, the issue of investor-friendly and investor confidence, and I want to take it from what my colleague Nick Korenhoff has said in terms of 1996 and leadership. I don't think there is a question of leadership crisis in this country. There is a problem around how we communicate, all of us. And I think even the secretary of the labor movement, the biggest federation, Zwelinzima Mavavi, said, we need to bring some sense of normality and stability in the mining sector. Otherwise, we'll be seen as a crisis country in terms of that particular sector. Now, having said so, the recent development is that we've seen that both role players have been convened under the leadership of the president of this country to say, let's all get our act together. And as we speak right now, you've got a social pact, the details of which unfortunately has been reduced to wage freezes. But I think we should actually look into that and say, what is it that we are trying to do? Because leadership is about the entire collectiveness of society. In terms of investor confidence, I think it will be unrealistic to think that with all this global crisis that is taking place all over the world, South Africa should remain as if it is an unaffected party, because we are part of that global environment. So I thought it would be important to put that into place. Both the business sector, labor and government should actually find a way to say this is where we're going. And I think the minister is in a better position to can articulate that position this afternoon.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Koronov, back to you. What should the minister do to restore confidence in the economy, both for our sakes as well as investors?
Well, I think he must go back to the 2008 years where there was very strong controls and strong fiscal policy in South Africa. I think there was a little bit of expediency since 2008, and we have used up the fiscal room. So he must definitely send a very strong signal that Treasury is in control, and that through creating leadership, we will have business confidence and the necessary investments.
All right. Mr. Harris, do you agree? How does the minister send a strong signal? What does he have to do to boost confidence?
Well, I think certainly one signal that we'll be looking at, and I think the whole country will be looking at, is where we come out on the debt ratio. Right now, we're flirting with levels of around 40% debt to GDP. We wouldn't like to see that go much higher than that. I think if he can show that that will come down in the medium term, that our deficits, although they're probably going to rise this year, are going to start coming down next year and the year after, I think that will send the kind of signal you're looking for. But it's going to be difficult for the finance minister to achieve that when he's doing things like paying the public servants out more than he said he would in February, bailing out SAA to the tune of 5 billion rand. He really does have a challenge today because this government is spending far more than it has.
All right. And then just very briefly, the problems in mining, is that, do we expect the minister to address that issue today? Let's start with you, sir.
Well, as I've said, the problem in the mining sector is not just a problem of wage demands, it's a socio-economic issue. And I think it is a matter that requires more attention, not through the budget process only, but collective leadership in terms of making sure that a number of issues and a whole range of issues are addressed in that particular sector. Right. And I may be the Chamber of Mines and the Labour Federation are beginning to grapple with these issues at this particular point in time.
Right.
But obviously we need to do more to restore the stability and the normality in that sector.
Right. Thank you,
because
sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Harris, just very briefly, do you expect the minister to touch on the mining problems today?
Well, I think he has to. The DA estimates that we've lost around 2.5 billion rand in tax revenue because of the situation on the mines. We'd look at him to try and restore investor confidence in the sector and perhaps propose reforms to labour laws that will include minority unions in collective bargaining. That would go a long way.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Koronov, I think I'll give the last word to you. Do we expect the minister to say anything about mining?
Well, you know, I think I cannot avoid it, and I have to agree with the two former speakers. He must address it, but it is a collective leadership problem, and we want to see a joint approach on that issue.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. Well, after the break, we share with you some analysis on the MTBPS when we talk to economic analyst Mr. Abdul Wahid Patel from Ethical. Please stay with us.